4, Chapter 4, The Empress. The dinner concluded without any further incident, and Rebecca returned Bruno and Carina from whence they came. As soon as Rebecca drove away, both breathed a sigh of relief. Carina raised an eyebrow when she saw her cousin slumming in her house, and she decided not to question why he preferred to watch cartoons in her television. He had probably come there to spend time with Bruno. Bruno sat down beside Rodrigo to watch the Venture Brothers. "Do you want to play chess, Bruno?" asked Rodrigo, gesturing to Bruno's chess set. "Board games are not really your style," said Bruno. "I can grow to like it, and if you don't beat me in less than 5 minutes," said Rodrigo before opening the chessboard, and he asked, "Do you want to play with the whites or the blacks?" "I prefer black pieces," lied Bruno. He added, "The board is upside down." "Is it?" asked Bruno, studying the board. "The queen is always on the right, and she must also occupy a block matching her color, and this is how you can tell if the board is upside down," explained Bruno. "Oh, the wonders of the world never cease," said Bruno, and he busted out laughing when something silly happened on the television. Bruno narrowed his eyes for a second when he realized that Rodrigo was only going to half pay attention to the game, and playing chess with a distracted novice was not Bruno's idea of fun. And he decided to indulge Rodrigo for the sake of their friendship. And Carina left her friends playing chess, and she rummaged through her closet in search of a bathrobe. And she turned on the faucet to wait for the tub to fill up, and from time to time she would tiptoe to the living room to eavesdrop. And she stopped going back and forth when the tub got a quarter full, and she placed her hand inside the water. It was just the right temperature. And she lighted scented candles before dropping a bath bomb, and she stripped down before sinking into the comforting, watery embrace. "Ah, this is the life," said Carina, closing her eyes, and she caressed her silky flesh while she mused about all of the things she wanted to do to Bruno tonight, and her lustful muses were broken by her cell phone vibrating. "Oh, hey, Oberon, what's up?" asked Carina. "Nothing much," said Oberon, who was also in the bathtub. "I'm in the bathtub soft-boiling my twins. I wasn't aware that you had siblings and that you took weird baths together," joked Carina. "I was talking about my nuts," said Oberon, passing his hand over his dyed green hair. "I know, and can you guess where I'm at?" asked Carina, taking a selfie. And she did a kissy mouth to be cute. Oberon giggled with delight when he saw that Carina was also in the bathtub, and the tasteful selfie showed only her cleavage. Her lovely copper twins were hidden beneath her wet brown hair. "Your skin looks positively marvelous, and what cream do you use?" asked Oberon. "Royal jelly. I apply it once a week," said Carina. "Is it expensive?" asked Oberon. "A little, but royal jelly is not for everyone, and Ken uses coconut oil cream, and it does wonders for his skin, and he washes his hands often, so he needs cream to keep them from chafing," said Carina. "Ken told me that you train him, and what tricks do you know?" asked Oberon. What he truly wanted to know was what tricks Ken knew. I'm very good at missionary," said Carina, downplaying her skills, and she passed her index finger over her lips, and it had been a while since she had flirted. Oberon laughed heartily before saying, "I am expert at missionary. Have you ever 69 With or without fur?" asked Carina. "Come again?" asked Oberon, raising an eyebrow, and then he said, "Oh, you mean the bears? And does it make a difference?" "I meant fairy, but bears also have their usage as long as they make the effort to brush their coat before entering the bedchambers," said Carina, and she was stickler for hygiene. "So you like your men with a thick coat?" asked Oberon. "I can go either way. I don't know why some women are such martyrs about body hair," said Carina. "Body hair is perfectly natural," said Oberon. "And are you doing someone after your bath?" "Hopefully I will do Bruno," said Carina before licking her full lips. "That's good. If I could, I would do Bruno as well," joked Oberon. "Boo, and here I thought I was the one you wanted," pouted Carina as she feigned sadness. "I want you, Carina, but I must admit that I'm also a tad curious about Bruno, and I want to come between you two, if you don't mind," said Oberon, trying his luck. He was bored and alone in his apartment, and he wanted someone to do. I am going to have to ask Bruno. Bruno, yelled Carina. Coming, honey, said Bruno, finding the perfect excuse to stop playing with an unskilled opponent, and he smiled when he saw Carina inside the tub. He got undressed before coming to stand before Carina, and Carina moved aside to allow him to sink into the tub with her. And after squeezing inside, Bruno commented, "We need to buy a bigger tub." "I like it how it is," said Carina before lugging Bruno's arm over her shoulder. "Carina, Carina, did you ask Bruno?" yelled Oberon, since he was hearing Carina's voice in the distance. "I'm sorry, Oberon, I gotta go," said Carina, hanging up the cell phone. Oberon frowned and stuck his tongue at the cell phone. He sank underneath the water before saying, "What a tease." Rodrigo sat there for 5 minutes waiting for Bruno to return, and when he heard Carina's loud yelping sounds, it became obvious that Bruno wasn't coming back. Rodrigo turned off the television before putting away the chess pieces. He had been worrying a lot over nothing. The minutes rolled lazily by with Bruno and Carina locked in the mating embrace, and they eventually left the bathtub when the water got cold. They continued their workout inside the bed, and after 3 hours, Carina was spent, and she was too sleepy to bother to continue. And she dreamed that she was by the ocean, and her body was slowly rocked back and forth by the waves. And she saw by the shore a woman beckoning her closer, and the woman was dressed like a Greek maiden, and she even had a harp. And when the woman spoke, Carina was surprised to hear a man's voice. "I desire and I crave," said the woman with a man's voice. The voice was very familiar. Carina opened her mouth, and she made no sound. "You set me afire, come to me again, and release me from my growing anxiety," said the woman as she approached. Carina shook her head to illustrate her desire not to mate, and this was all she could do since her vocal cords were not working in the dream. Since this wasn't deterring the approaching figure, she threw sand at the woman, and the two got into a sand-throwing fight. "Ow, Carina, wake up!" barked Bruno. And Carina had slapped her boyfriend in her sleep. And Carina laughed nervously before saying, "Sorry, I didn't mean to. I will go sleep on the couch." "It's fine, just don't slap me again," said Bruno. "That is easier said than done. I don't control what I do when I sleep," said Carina, kissing Bruno on the cheek she had slapped. "It's fine, whatever. Good night, my little pillow," said Bruno, snuggling against Carina. It didn't take long for him to fall into a heavy slumber, and Carina, on the other hand, was still well awake, and when Bruno rolled on his side, she was able to sit up. And she reached into her nightstand to bring out a little journal, and she liked to record whatever weird dreams she had. It had been a while since she had dreamt anything worth writing down, and now that she was awake, she realized that the woman in her dream was speaking using Bruno's voice. This had to mean something, but what? The second half of the dream made more sense. She had gotten into a sand fight with a brat, therefore she had dreamt about it. She wrote down the words that the woman had said. She was calling Irina the first thing in the morning to ask her to interpret the dream. And after writing down her dream, she went back to sleep again. The following day, she awoke close to noon, and she always tended to sleep through the morning when she was in vacation mode. And she called up Irina to ask her about her dream. And when Irina heard the line, she said, "The woman in your dream is reciting a poem fragment from Sappho, a Greek poetess. You were probably forced to read her works in college, so when Bruno cited a poetess, you subconsciously remember the origin of those words. Not all dreams are prophetic, some are just your brain figuring out an answer to a question." "I suppose that makes sense, and thank you for interpreting my dream in such short notice. Bye," said Carina. If she read Sappho's poetry, she didn't remember, and Carina wrote down in her financial ledger that she owed $20 to Irina for the dream interpretation. And with that task out of the way, she went about her routine, and she showered and changed the bedsheets, and she had breakfast with her mother. Based on her outfits, Carina guessed that her mother was going to the beach with her sister and her entire brood. "I wanted to invite Rebecca and the girls along for the ride," said Unla. "You can invite them, just don't expect Bruno to be there. He has a very little tolerance for his sister as of lately," said Carina. "Well, I'm not one to judge, and if I saw Dr. Lacson walking into the living room, there's a good chance that I might attempt to poke her eyes out with a fork," mused Unla. "Sheesh, Mom, what did Dr. Lacson do to you?" asked Carina. "It's not important. I know what she did, and she knows what she did, and let's just leave it at that," said Unla. "Mom, just tell me the story already," begged Carina. Larkson was your father's ex-girlfriend, and she was also my first boss. And she fired me when she became aware of our relationship, said Unla, simplifying the story. And middle managers can be so petty. The conversation was interrupted by Bruno returning to the house after his workout, and he seemed to be in a good mood for a change, and he made for himself a protein shake, and his arm muscle circumference has decreased by 1 millimeter. This needed to be corrected immediately. Is it good? Asked Carina, coming over to examine the green milkshake. I don't know, you tell me, said Bruno, handing his half-empty glass to Carina. Carina grimaced after taking a sip. God, how can you drink this? Closing my nose helps, said Bruno, closing his nose with his index finger and thumb. He gulped down his shake while he fought the urge to empty his mouth, and once he recuperated, he added, if you're going to the beach, we should take my nieces along for the ride. Are you sure? Asked Unla. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. It's fine, I want to do it, lied Bruno. He didn't want to repeat what happened the day before. I have a medical question, said Unla. Can you please not be a psychologist for one day? Asked Bruno, visibly annoyed. Mommy's only asking because she's worried. We both are worried about you, said Carina, and her eyes were focused on Bruno's bruised hand. I'm fine, my hand is fine. I don't remember how I got the bruise. It could have happened by the beach, and the waves tossed me about a lot, and it was hard staying afloat while lugging about the girls, said Bruno, deflecting the question. Unla pretended to be satisfied with his answer, and it was too soon to expect Bruno to trust her with his secrets. Carina, on the other hand, wasn't satisfied with that answer, and still she knew that it was pointless to pressure Bruno, and if he didn't want to answer, the lawyer had a million ways to deflect the question. The party got in their cars and they drove to Miami Beach, and Rebecca was quite pleased to have been invited along for the ride by her brother. The meeting point was the beach just behind Sazon, and the drive there was slow, and there was an event happening in Miami Beach. And they arrived 2 hours past noon, and during the car ride, Bruno isolated himself by reading a book, and Carina, taking the hint, brought out her cell phone to answer her text messages, and she eventually got down to answering her latest message. Carina, I have a medical question, tested Eugenia. Is it itchy? Is it red in places that it shouldn't? Tested Carina, giggling. No, it's fine and stinking. And do you have any babies in your family? Tested Eugenia. Impatient to be a mother, are you? Tested Carina. I'm not impatient, it is just that you can only learn so much by practicing with dolls. And what does it smell like? Asked Eugenia. It depends on what you feed the baby. The more natural the food, the better. And if you can have someone breastfeed your baby, it will work all the better, said Carina. Do they still make wet nurses? Tested Eugenia. Yes, they still make wet nurses, though they have modernized, and I can recommend a few reputable wet nurses that have proven track record and a healthy lifestyle, said Carina. She then tested the information, and she sighed wearily after working during her vacation. She wanted nothing more than to relax, and she looked at Bruno before pouting, and she worried about him getting into another stupid fight with his sister. And one would think that after all this time the two would have learned to get along. The two got along well from a distance. The more distance, the better. The more distance between them, the better. The car stopped once Unla found a parking. Bruno and Rodrigo carried all the supplies and umbrella, while Carina carried her purse, and from time to time other women would turn their heads to ogle at Bruno's magnificent abs. He was a hot devil, he was a beauty, while she was an overweight beast, and she sighed before stomping on the floor to bury her insecurities in the sand, and there was nothing wrong with her, though for her health it wouldn't kill her to drop a few pounds, if only to be able to keep up with Bruno in the bedchambers. The bastard had stamina. She found Rebecca and the girl sitting by the shade of the light guard tower, and Carina folded her chair before sitting down, and Bruno busied himself by setting up the umbrellas, and once he was done, he lay down on the sand to continue reading his book. I admire your focus, said Rodrigo, taking away Bruno's book. The only books I ever bothered to read are for work, and can you tell me what is so fascinating about Peter Pan? Peter Pan! Why are you reading a book based on a Disney movie? The book came first, And Olivia was supposed to read it for school, but since she did it, I'm reading it for her. And once I finish, I will write her a one-page summary, explained Bruno. Oh, for goodness sake, Olivia, do your homework, said Rebecca, taking the book away from Bruno. Fine, said Olivia, sitting down with her book, and after reading 4 pages, she started dozing off. And Carina took the book, and after clearing her throat, she started to read it out loud. And back when her father was alive, he used to read her stories. And he was a family bookworm, and after he died, nobody ever read books out loud as a family. And Carina didn't quite much care for Peter Pan, though the more she read, the more she thought of her father. And Olivia rested her head against Carina's knee before sighing, and she brought out a notepad from her backpack, and from time to time she would write notes to help her in the school report. And after reading for 2 hours, Carina wasn't able to go on anymore. Her voice acquired a wheezy intonation, and Rebecca attempted to pick up where Carina left off, though after reading for half an hour, her eyes started to burn. And Bruno picked up the slack, and the hours rolled lazily by, with the families taking turns reading. Bye-bye and God bless.